Your voice is the only thing keeping 30 men alive. Not your rifle, not your training, just your voice. Radio call signs, grid coordinates, target descriptions, words transmitted through static and chaos and fear, words that bring death from the sky on the right people instead of the wrong ones. Get the numbers wrong by 1 digit and you kill your own men. Get them right and you save them. That's what it means to be a radio operator in Vietnam. My name is Specialist 4 David Morrison, 21 years old. From a small town in Nebraska where I'd never seen a real mountain or a jungle or understood what it meant to carry 60 pounds of radio equipment through hostile territory while everyone wants to shoot you. The NVA and VC loved targeting radio operators. We had these big PRC-25 radios strapped to our backs with tall antennas sticking up. Perfect target. Kill the RTO, radio telephone operator, and you kill the unit's ability to call for support. Kill the RTO and everyone else dies slower. I knew this when I got assigned to be one. They told us in training. Radio operators had the second highest casualty rate in infantry units after officers. Officers led from the front. RTOs walked right behind them with giant bullseyes on their backs. But someone had to do it. Someone had to be the voice. Someone had to call in the artillery, the airstrikes, the medevacs, the reinforcements. Someone had to maintain that lifeline to everything that kept infantry units alive. I arrived in Vietnam in March 1968. Got assigned to an infantry company in the 25th Infantry Division. Company C, 2nd Battalion, 27th Infantry. They called themselves the Wolfhounds. Good unit. Experienced. By the time I got there, they'd already lost 3 RTOs in 4 months. I was the replacement, the new guy, the FNG, fucking new guy who'd have to learn how to do the job before the job killed him. My platoon leader was Lieutenant Carson, 23 years old, on his 2nd tour. He'd already lost 2 RTOs. He looked at me on my first day like he was measuring me for a body bag. Stay close, he said. When shit happens, I need you right there. Every second counts when calling for support. Yes, sir, I said. And keep your head down. Dead RTOs can't call for help. Sound advice. Hard to follow when you're trying to work a radio while bullets snap past your head. I spent my first month learning the job. Radio protocols, call signs, grid coordinate systems, how to talk to artillery batteries, to helicopter pilots, to forward air controllers, how to paint targets for airstrikes, how to adjust fire, how to do all of it while people were shooting at you. Learning theory and training was one thing. Doing it under fire was something else entirely. June 12th, 1968. That was the day I learned what my voice really meant, what it could do, what it cost to use it. That was the day my voice killed more people than I can count, saved more people than I can count, and broke something inside me that never healed. We were running a patrol near the Cambodian border. Routine sweep operation, looking for NVA supply routes. The kind of patrol we ran every week. The jungle was thick, triple canopy. Couldn't see more than 20 feet in any direction. Couldn't see the sky. Perfect ambush country. We walked into it at 1400 hours. The NVA had set up a horseshoe ambush, let the point element walk through, then opened up on the main body of the platoon. Machine guns, RPGs, AK-47s, all of it at once from 3 sides. Men went down immediately. I hit the ground next to Lieutenant Carson, bullets tearing through the vegetation above us, the distinctive crack of AKS, the deeper thump of RPGs exploding. "Get on the horn," Carson was shouting. "We need gunships. Now." I was already reaching for the handset, muscle memory, training kicking in despite the fear. Black Hawk 6, Black Hawk 6, this is Wolfhound 2-1, contact over. Static. Then, Wolfhound 2-1, this is Black Hawk 6, send it. The company commander, waiting for my report, waiting for information that would determine what support we got and how fast. I had to give him everything he needed: location, enemy strength, casualties, what we needed. All of it while lying on my stomach with bullets snapping overhead. Black Hawk 6, grid coordinates 784321, heavy contact. Estimate platoon size enemy force, multiple casualties. Request immediate air support and medevac, over. My voice was steady. Somehow. Inside I was terrified. But the voice had to be steady, had to be clear, had to transmit the information accurately. Roger, Wolfhound 2-1. Stand by for gunships. ETA 15 minutes, 15 minutes. An eternity in a firefight. Carson was directing return fire. The platoon was shooting back, but we were pinned down, couldn't advance, couldn't retreat, just lying there taking casualties while we tried to suppress the enemy fire. "We need Artie," Carson shouted at me. "Danger close. Put it on them. Danger close. Artillery fire within 600 meters of friendly positions. Close enough to kill us if the rounds landed wrong, but we didn't have a choice." I switched to the artillery frequency. Steel Rain, this is Wolfhound 2-1, fire mission, over. Wolfhound 2-1, this is Steel Rain. Send your fire mission. I gave them the coordinates, target description, danger close warning. Everything they needed to drop high explosives on the enemy positions that were killing us. Shot over, Steel Rain responded. First round on the way. Shot out, I confirmed. 30 seconds later, splash, over, round impact imminent. The artillery round screamed in and exploded maybe 300 meters away, too far. I'd miscalculated the distance. Steel Rain, add 100, fire for effect. Roger, adding 100. More rounds, closer this time. I could feel the concussion, could see trees shredding from the shrapnel. The enemy fire slackened, but not enough. They were still shooting, still had us pinned. The radio crackled again. Wolfhound 2-1, this is Falcon 2-1, a pair of Cobras 2 minutes out. Mark your position. Gunships. Finally. I grabbed a smoke grenade, pulled the pin, threw it as far as I could toward our perimeter. Falcon 2-1, I'm popping purple smoke. Friendlies are south of the smoke. Enemy north and east. Roger, I have purple smoke. I could hear the gunships now. The distinctive sound of Cobra helicopters. Beautiful sound. Death coming for the enemy instead of us. Wolfhound 2-1, we're coming in hot. Keep your heads down. The Cobras made their run. Rockets streaking from their pods. Minigun fire tearing through the jungle. Thousands of rounds per minute. The sound was overwhelming, like the world was being ripped apart. The enemy fire diminished, not stopped, but lessened enough that we could move. Carson to all elements, displace north, move, move. We started pulling back, dragging our wounded, returning fire. The Cobras made another pass, then another. My radio kept crackling, artillery asking for adjustments, the gunships coordinating their runs, company asking for status updates, medevac asking for LZ information, and me, in the middle of it all, voice steady, giving coordinates, painting targets, being the connection between the men on the ground and the fire support that was keeping us alive. My voice, the only thing between survival and annihilation. We pulled back to a small clearing, set up a defensive perimeter. The Cobras were still working over the enemy positions. The artillery was still firing, but we'd broken contact. We weren't getting overrun. I was calling in the medevac. Dustoff 2-7, this is Wolfhound 2-1. I have 4 urgent, 2 priority, 1 routine. LZ is cold, repeat, LZ is cold. The medevac pilot confirmed. 5 minutes out. I looked around the perimeter, counted the wounded. 4 urgent, critical injuries. 2 priority, serious but stable. 1 routine, walking wounded. Then I saw the bodies, 3 men who hadn't made it out, left behind in the initial contact site. PFC Martinez, Corporal Johnson, Private First Class Tommy Nguyen. Dead because we couldn't get to them. Dead because the fire was too heavy. Dead because I'd called in artillery and gunships that might have hit them for all I knew. Morrison, Carson was calling me. I need you to adjust the arty. Pin them down while we get the wounded out. I switched back to the artillery frequency, gave them new coordinates, walked the fire along the tree line where the enemy was, each adjustment bringing explosions closer to where our dead were lying. My voice, steady and professional. Steel rain, left 50, add 50, fire for effect. Roger, left 50, add 50. The rounds impacted. Trees exploded. The enemy fire stopped completely. Either we'd killed them or they'd retreated. Either way, the mission was accomplished. The medevac landed. We loaded the wounded. They lifted off. The clearing was quiet except for the distant sound of the Cobras still working over the area. We held the perimeter until the company sent a relief force. Then we moved back to the original contact site to recover our dead. What was left of them? The artillery and gunships had torn up the jungle. Trees were shredded. The ground was cratered. And among the debris were our 3 dead soldiers, or pieces of them. Hard to tell what was what. The explosions had done terrible things. Martinez's mother would get a flag and a telegram. Johnson's wife would get the same. Nguyen's parents in California would bury their son in a closed casket. And I was the one who'd called in the fire that had turned them from bodies into pieces. Not your fault, Carson said quietly. He'd seen me staring at the remains. They were dead before the arty landed. Maybe, probably, but I didn't know that. Couldn't know that. All I knew was that I'd given coordinates and explosions had happened, and now 3 men were in pieces. We bagged what we could find, called in another helicopter for the remains, moved back to the fire base. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept hearing my own voice on the radio. Calm, professional. Giving coordinates, requesting fire, painting targets. My voice had saved 27 men. My voice had killed dozens of enemy soldiers. My voice had done its job perfectly, but it had also called in fire on positions where our own dead were lying, had turned them into pieces in the name of mission accomplishment. Carson found me around midnight, sitting outside my hooch, staring at nothing. You did good today, he said. Your radio work saved the platoon, saved my life. I nodded. Couldn't speak. Didn't trust my voice anymore. This is the job, he continued. You call the fire. People die. Sometimes they're the right people. Sometimes they're not. But you make the call anyway because the alternative is everyone dying. Yes, sir, I managed. He sat with me for a while. Neither of us saying anything. Both of us knowing that what he'd said was true, and that truth didn't make it any easier. The next day, we went on another patrol. I carried the radio. I called in fire support when we made contact. I did my job, but something had changed. My voice was still steady, still professional, still accurate. But I could hear the weight in it now, could hear the cost of every coordinate transmitted, could hear the death that followed every fire mission. My voice was keeping men alive, but it was also killing pieces of me with every transmission. July and August were bad months. We were in near constant contact. The NVA was active along the border. Every patrol seemed to end in a firefight. Every firefight required fire support. Every fire mission was another test of whether my voice would work, whether the coordinates would be right, whether I'd call death on the right people. I called in dozens of fire missions, artillery strikes, air strikes, gunship runs. Became very good at it. Could paint targets while lying in mud. Could adjust fire while bullets snapped past. Could maintain radio contact with multiple stations while coordinating complex fire support. The officers loved me. Said I was the best RTO they'd worked with. Said my radio work had saved countless lives. Put me in for medals. Commended my performance under fire. But I was dying inside. Each fire mission took something from me. Each transmission of coordinates felt like I was signing death warrants. Sometimes for the enemy. Sometimes, I couldn't help thinking, for people who didn't deserve it. Because who really deserved death by artillery? The NVA soldiers were just doing their job, same as us. Fighting for their country. Following orders. Most of them conscripts who didn't have a choice. And I was the one calling fire on them. My voice was the instrument of their destruction. In August, we were supporting an ARVN unit that got ambushed. They called for air support. I coordinated with the forward air controller. An F-4 Phantom came in hot, dropped napalm on the enemy positions. I watched it happen, watched the jellied gasoline spread and ignite, watched the jungle burn, heard the screaming on the radio. Not our radios. The NVA had radios too. Sometimes the frequencies overlapped. Sometimes you could hear them. I heard them burning, heard them screaming as the napalm consumed them, heard them die. And I'd been the one who'd given the coordinates, who'd cleared the pilot hot, who'd made it happen. That night I vomited until there was nothing left in my stomach. Then I dry heaved for another hour. Carson found me again. Didn't say anything this time, just sat with me while I fell apart. I can request a transfer, he said finally. Get you out of this position, put someone else on the radio. I shook my head. Then someone else has to do it. Someone else has to carry this. Someone else hasn't been doing it for 5 months straight. Someone else might not be as good at it as you are. That was the problem. I was good at it, too good. My fire missions were accurate. My radio work was professional. I saved lives. But the cost was mounting. Each transmission, each fire mission, each voice call that brought death from the sky. I was keeping men alive, but I was destroying myself in the process. I'll finish my tour, I told Carson. Someone has to do it. Might as well be me. He nodded, understood. We both knew there was no good answer. No way to do this job without it breaking you. You just had to decide whether to break now or break later. I chose later. Chose to keep carrying the radio, keep making the calls, keep being the voice, until the voice was all that was left of me. October 3rd, 1968. I'd been in Vietnam for 7 months, carried the radio on over 100 patrols, called in dozens of fire missions, coordinated hundreds of radio transmissions. I knew I was close to my limit, could feel it, the weight of all those transmissions, all those fire missions, all those voices screaming for support while I calmly gave coordinates and painted targets. We were on a patrol near Firebase Rita, standard operation. Check the surrounding area, make sure the NVA wasn't massing for an attack. We found them, or they found us. A full NVA company, well-positioned, ready for us. The ambush was immediate and overwhelming, heavier than anything we'd faced before. RPGs, heavy machine guns, mortars. They had everything and they were using it. We were pinned down within seconds, taking casualties. The platoon was getting shredded. "Get on the radio," Carson was shouting, blood running down his face from a head wound. "Everything. Give me everything." I was already transmitting. Multiple frequencies, artillery, gunships, air support, medevac, everything at once. Black Hawk 6, Wolfhound 2-1, troops in contact, heavy casualties, need immediate air support. Steel Rain, fire mission, danger close. Falcon 2-1, gunships to grid 798, 463, we are marked by purple smoke. My voice, still steady, still professional, still accurate despite the chaos. The fire support came, artillery first, close, too close. I could feel the shrapnel overhead, but it was hitting the enemy, suppressing their fire. Then the gunships. Cobras making runs, rockets and minigun fire tearing through the NVA positions. Then the fast movers, F-4 Phantoms with 500-pound bombs and napalm. I was coordinating all of it, painting targets, adjusting fire, keeping everyone from hitting us instead of them. My voice, calm and professional. The only calm thing in the chaos. Carson went down. Chest wound, critical. The platoon sergeant took over. Then he got hit. Then the squad leaders started calling out on the radio, asking for orders, for direction, for someone to tell them what to do. And I was the only voice left, the only one coordinating, the only one keeping the fire support coming, the only one holding the platoon together. All Wolfhound elements, this is 2-1, I heard myself saying. Pull back to Rally Point Bravo. I'm bringing fire on the original position. I wasn't supposed to be giving orders. I was just the RTO, but there was no one else left. Just me and my voice and the radio. I walked artillery fire along our withdrawal route. Danger close, risking hitting our own people, but it was the only way to break contact. We got out, barely. Half the platoon was casualties. Carson survived, but was medevaced. The platoon sergeant didn't make it, and I'd been the voice. The one giving orders. The one coordinating the fire support. The one making life and death decisions. Not because I was qualified, not because I was trained for it, just because I had the radio and everyone else was down. When we got back to the fire base, I kept working the radio, calling in the medevacs, coordinating the casualty reports, requesting resupply, professional, efficient, accurate. Then I put down the handset, walked to my hooch, sat down, and couldn't speak. Literally couldn't speak. Tried to say something and nothing came out. My voice, the voice that had been steady through everything, was gone. Complete breakdown. The stress, the weight, the accumulated trauma of 7 months of being the voice, it all collapsed at once. They medevaxed me out the next day. Combat exhaustion. They'd call it PTSD later, but right then they just called it a breakdown. The voice that had kept men alive couldn't even whisper anymore. I'm recording this in late 1968. Been home for 6 weeks, 21 years old. My voice came back after 2 weeks. Physically, I can speak again, but something's broken. Something in how I relate to my own voice, to words, to communication. I can't talk on the phone, can't do it. The sound of a voice through static, even normal phone static, sends me into panic attacks, takes me back to the radio, back to transmitting coordinates, back to calling in fire. I can't give directions, can't tell people how to get places, can't give anyone coordinates or locations or guidance, because every time I try, I hear my voice painting targets, calling in artillery, directing death from the sky. I whisper now. All the time. Can't seem to speak at normal volume. The VA psychiatrist says it's because my subconscious associates my normal voice with combat, with death, with the voice that called in fire missions. So I whisper. Keep my voice small. Keep it contained. Keep it from having the power to kill. The nightmares are always the same. I'm on the radio, calling in fire missions, but the coordinates are wrong. The fire is hitting friendlies. I can hear them screaming on the radio, and I can't stop transmitting. Can't stop my voice from calling in more fire. Can't stop killing. I wake up trying to scream corrections into a handset that isn't there. The VA psychiatrist says I have survivor's guilt. Says I feel responsible for the deaths. Says I've associated my voice with destruction, and now I'm trying to silence it. Maybe. All I know is that my voice was a weapon, is a weapon, the most effective weapon I carried in Vietnam, more lethal than any rifle, more powerful than any grenade. My voice killed hundreds of people, directed artillery and airstrikes and gunships, painted targets, adjusted fire, brought death with nothing but words and coordinates. And yes, my voice saved lives too, called in medevacs, coordinated support, kept men alive in firefights. But the killing feels heavier than the saving. The death feels more real than the life. I can't listen to military radio chatter, can't watch war movies, can't hear anyone using radio call signs or military terminology without having flashbacks. My family doesn't understand. They're happy I'm home, happy I survived. They see me walking and talking and think I'm okay. They don't see that the voice they're hearing isn't really mine anymore, that I'm speaking in whispers because I'm terrified of what my normal voice can do, that I've trapped the voice that kept men alive in Vietnam because I can't trust it here. I got a letter from Lieutenant Carson. He survived. Multiple surgeries, but he made it. He thanked me for my radio work, said I'd saved his life, said I was the best RTO he'd ever worked with. I couldn't respond. Tried to write back several times. Couldn't find the words. Because what do you say? You're welcome for calling in the fire that saved you and killed so many others. The coordinates I transmitted. The fire missions I called. The targets I painted. All of it was necessary. All of it was justified. All of it followed the rules of engagement. But my voice was the instrument. My words were the mechanism. I was the one who translated chaos into coordinates and coordinates into death. That's what a radio operator does. That's what I did for 7 months. Perfectly, professionally, accurately. And it broke something in me that I don't think can be fixed. I'm 21 years old. My voice kept 30 men alive in firefights. My voice called death on hundreds of enemy soldiers. My voice was the most important tool in the platoon. And now I can barely speak above a whisper because I'm terrified of what my voice can do. The Army taught me to use my voice as a weapon, taught me to be calm under fire, taught me to transmit coordinates that would bring destruction. They didn't teach me how to use my voice for anything else afterward, how to speak without hearing the consequences, how to give directions without seeing explosions, how to talk without remembering what my words could do. My voice kept men alive in Vietnam, saved countless lives, did its job perfectly. But it cost me the ability to use it for anything else. Cost me normal conversation, normal communication, normal human connection through speech. I speak in whispers now, keep my voice small and powerless, because I know what it can do when it's loud, when it's clear, when it's transmitting coordinates and painting targets. I know what destruction sounds like in my own voice, and I can't unhear it. Can't unspeak those words, can't undo those transmissions, can't recall the fire missions I called in. They're permanent. Recorded in the static and chaos of Vietnam, recorded in my memory, recorded in the voices of the men I saved and the silence of the men I killed. Your voice is the only thing keeping 30 men alive. That's what it means to be a radio operator in Vietnam. But what they don't tell you is that using your voice that way, using it as a weapon, as a tool of destruction, as the instrument of death from the sky, what they don't tell you is that you can never use it normally again, that your voice becomes contaminated by what it's done, by the death it's called, by the coordinates it's transmitted. That saving lives with your voice costs you the ability to use it for anything else. I kept men alive in Vietnam. My voice did that. My words, my transmissions. And I'll spend the rest of my life whispering, trying to keep my voice small enough that it can't hurt anyone, can't call down fire, can't kill. Some weapons you can put down when the war is over. But your voice, that stays with you. That's permanent. And once you've used it to kill, you can never quite trust it again. Even when you're just trying to say hello. Even when you're just trying to speak, the static never stops. The transmissions never end. The coordinates keep echoing in your head. And you whisper, because whispering is safe, because whispers can't call in artillery, can't paint targets, can't kill. Your voice is the only thing keeping 30 men alive. It's also the thing that kills you slowly, word by whispered word, for the rest of your life. That's what they don't tell you about being a radio operator. That's what I learned in Vietnam. That's what I'll carry forever, in a voice so quiet you can barely hear it. Because loud voices are dangerous. Loud voices kill. And I can't let mine do that anymore. Not ever again.